seems like in 2026, everyone wants to talk about AI search and algorithm updates. Cool. Meanwhile, sites that were winning 3 years ago are still using the same fundamentals to win today. So today, I'm going to show you 5 real ranking wins from this year and break down exactly what made them work. No theory, no fluff, just results. Hey there, I'm Jake Serota, the Director of SEO here at Authority Builders, and welcome back to Ranking Secrets. And if you want SEO strategies that actually help move the needle and not just some recycled LinkedIn garbage or the same blog post that everyone else reads, make sure to hit subscribe and like, and let's go ahead and get into this week's episode. All right, so today's ranking secret is actually very, very simple. Real wins come from boring, consistent execution. No hacks, no tricks, and I'm going to walk you through 5 actual case studies from campaigns we run, tell you what those numbers were, and more importantly, why they actually worked. Because the patterns are more visible than the individual results. All right, win number 1. First up, let's talk about an e-commerce store that had tons of competition. They sell garden tools and decor, so they're competing with things like Lowe's, Home Depot. And before we started, they were getting absolutely crushed by core algorithm updates. They used to get a lot of traffic, but they had dropped down to around 2,000 visitors per month. Keywords were cut in half, and they were stuck on page 2 for everything. So naturally, they weren't getting any conversions or sales. So the approach was aggressive keyword targeting combined with consistent link building to the pages that needed it the most. And we specifically focused on domains with a DA of 20 or higher. Focused heavily on product page optimization because that's where buyers land. And as a result, we got 500 new referring domains from our link building campaign, and they went to 7,000 visitors monthly to over 40,000 organic visitors. And they rank in the top 10 for a lot of their main keywords that we targeted. So again, these are same keywords that are targeted by big brands like Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon, and really, at the end of the day, whenever Google is trying to match a query to someone's query to the best results on the internet, yes, brand power absolutely makes a difference, but whenever you take these fundamentals seriously and make your content the best out there, at the end of the day, Google doesn't care how many employees you have. They want to give the best result to whatever that person is searching. And by looking at what our client had and what the opportunities were, we were able to help them focus on what they needed to focus on from an SEO perspective. Okay, let's go ahead and share our second. I'm going to redo that. Okay, let's go ahead and share our second case. This one is a little bit more difficult than a traditional e-commerce. They are a therapy service provider who provides therapy services both in person and remote. And they started with a domain rating of 6, and they were only getting around 120 visitors per month, but none of it was actually that warm of traffic. So in the Your Money, Your Life space, also known as YMYL, trust signals are everything. If it has to do with wealth or your health, then Google is going to be a little bit more strict. So the strategy with this one was testing small and leaning into what worked. We targeted high intent keywords. We built out landing pages for those keywords, and we started building strategic backlinks towards them. So the results was that over 29 months, the domain rating went from 6 to 39, and they are in the top 3 positions for their main keywords, both remotely and in their local area. So the moral of the story is that things like YMYL take patience, things like health, wealth, any stuff like that, personal finance, you're going to need to be patient. But if you follow the best practices when it comes to structuring your content and doing outreach to get good quality signals to your backlink profile, well, that's what you need to replicate the authority that your competitors have. And that's how we help our clients do that. Okay, let's talk about the third one now. This is a nootropics brand, which was selling mushroom coffee and wellness beverages, a few different types. They have a few different product lines. And it's a super trendy space right now, which means it's also super competitive. Now, they were getting around 1,000 visitors a month before we started. Some of that was converting into sales, but they needed to make way, way more e-commerce sales than they were currently making. So what we did is we audited the competitors who were ranking above them for specific high value money pages, and we did what's called a link gap analysis. We strategically determined which types of websites we need to link to based on who's ranking at the top for these keywords. So by closing that gap of authority, by doing strategic link building, we were able to help them secure an over 1,000% increase in organic traffic. Now, naturally, this led to more sales. Their sales team was extremely happy because they're not only were they actually just making sales off of the website, but their phone was ringing off the hook. Because not only did we target product pages with backlinks, but we also did an in-depth content audit to find topics about this industry that people are searching in order to learn more about nootropics and improve their health. And we gave their content writers a very strict content structure schedule of what we recommend from an SEO perspective. They were able to marry that with their subject matter experts, get things posted on the website, and it was actually gaining its own backlinks without us doing any outreach because the content was that good. So that coupled with strategic link building by doing a link gap analysis first is how you build that real authority. So whenever we did that link building campaign, again, we didn't just target the money pages. We also built some branded links to their homepage, and we also targeted the great content that we were helping them produce as well. So in about 8 months, their domain rating went from 1 to 21, and traffic peaked at over 25,000 visitors and averaged around 18,000 per month. So again, that's over 1,000% increase, and they now rank for over 12,000 keywords according to Ahrefs, and I think around 400 of them are in the top 3 last time I checked. So again, the lesson here is that trendy markets might have a lot of search volume, but it takes time and real authority to actually win and dominate the SERPs. All right, let's go into our 4th win from our great team here at Authority Builders. And this is a tile and stone business for pools, kitchens, bathrooms, people who are remodeling. So before working with us, they had bounced around page 2 with a lot of high money terms actually, but there was no stability, and every algorithm update would completely demolish any kind of gains that they were making. So the strategy, what we did, is do a full custom content audit and a link velocity analysis to see how many backlinks their competitors were actively building. So we tracked around 100 keywords, and then we implemented our plan after doing the audit. Once we started reaching out to websites in between DR 20 and 60 and creating content in their space, we created some great content for those websites to link back to our clients. And after doing that, traffic went from about 4,500 to a peak of 67,000 unique visitors, according to their GA4. And referring domains spiked over 300%. They were getting tons and tons of new links. And once we really got that content strategy into full action, their link velocity surpassed the people who are ranking at the top for their main keywords. And that's really whenever we saw things start to jump. They were getting more organic traffic to their pages, and the sales team was telling us that their team has never been busier. So these are the things that you need to do whenever you're trying to close that gap of authority between your client's website or your website and the top rankers for whatever it is that you're trying to be visible for. All right, let's go ahead and talk about our last one. And again, this one is in a little bit of a competitive niche. It's financial planning. A financial planning firm that came to us, they were targeting a specific geographic location with a niche investment option. And that specifically was a little bit difficult to target, not only because is finance competitive, but it was an extremely niche market. They had a DR of around 37, and they had around 2,000 monthly visitors. A lot of that was just because they were established in the area. But what we needed to do was do some consistent link building through our managed SEO program, ABC Plus. What we did is we identified low-hanging fruit first. We identified pages that were already on the bottom of page 1 onto page 2 that we could easily target with some backlinks and move above the competitors. So that's what we did in the first few months. And then in the subsequent months, we started targeting more towards the homepage and towards the content that was consistently being posted by the team. So as the authority compounded for this client, the results was that the domain rating increased from 37 to 50. Traffic went to over 31,000 monthly visitors. So that's around a 900% increase in growth. The keywords that they're ranking for in Ahrefs was, at the last time I checked, over 23,000. And when they started with us, they were at 3,000. So the lesson here is that SEO compounds. The work that you're doing in month 1 is going to pay dividends as you continue to build your authority. And most people end up stopping before they even start seeing the full fruits of their labor because they get dissatisfied. So what do people get wrong whenever they look at case studies like this? Well, first, they underestimate timeframes. Again, like I just said, they might get a little impatient, and we have to keep in mind that most of these wins that I just talked about took anywhere from 8 to 32 months, and they're still continuing to pay for SEO services because, well, it's continuing to help them. Now, the second thing that people get wrong is focusing on the wrong metrics. Now, traffic is nice, don't get me wrong, and keyword rankings is nice, but you need to understand how that actually translates to conversions in sales metrics in order to justify more SEO spend. So for example, remember the garden tools company that I talked about? They were the very first case study that we talked about in this video. And they were constantly being crushed by algorithm updates. But if they had quit after the first time they were crushed by an algorithm update, they would have never reached 40,000 visitors. So persistence in the SEO space is really underrated. And at the end of the day, what you're doing for SEO is just best practices when it comes to building a brand. So here's what I want you to take away from these 5 wins. 1, build links to internal pages, not just your homepage. Most of your traffic potential actually lives on informational content and maybe product keywords as well. Number 2, make sure to match the link velocity of your competitors. So for example, if your competitors are building 300 links a month and you're only building 20, well, that might be why they're outranking you. You need to make sure that you keep it varied and natural if you're going to scale up your link building. So oftentimes it makes sense to narrow down and focus on a few pages first. Recommendation number 3 all has to do with using anchor text thoroughly and properly. About 50% targeted anchors if you're paying for the backlinks, and keep the other 50% more generic or helpful or branded. That's going to keep your backlink profile looking natural. Number 4, you're going to want to do outreach to websites that have real traffic, websites that actually are viewed in Google's eyes as an authoritative source. Because if Google is sending traffic to them, then you can assume that a backlink from that website is going to look good in Google's eyes. So that's pretty much all that I've got for this episode of Ranking Secrets from Authority Builders. Make sure to drop a comment and tell me what's the biggest challenge that you're facing whenever you're trying to grow rankings in 2026. Is it competition? Is it volatility with the algorithms? Is it maybe a drop in clicks due to the rise of AI overviews? Let me know. I want to hear it. So as always, make sure to hit like and subscribe and keep building that real authority. Cheers.